Hey guys, these are the Air Terminators. Yeah, this is a fun copter. Alright, so we're gonna, today, that was a quick unboxing and just a quick run through of what comes with it. Everything comes with it. It's a double set. It's 2 copters in one box. This is a spaceship design copter, as you know, that's what the game is, 2 spaceships fighting. It's very lightweight, comes in at 27.7 grams and 7.2 for the battery. Everything's thin and light. The plastic's hard, stiff material on these props, very thin, and the body has lots of cutouts, top and bottom, saving weight. So they've done that well, and it's responsive, really nice flying quad. It's not fast quad. This is just, it's quick and it's maneuverable. It can fly all around and do its job. It's what it does is what it's supposed to do. And I don't think it's like an agility quad, sports quad as such. The range isn't as far as I'd want for a fast flying sports quad. It's for more close range fighting, and it works great for that. It's also a terrific trainer. This is so easy to control, and the radio is very clean of stuff. It's got no trim buttons. It's just got the sticks, and it's got rate button, 3 rates, firing the infrared beam here, and an on-off switch, and the flip button. Feels good in the hands. Takes 4 AA batteries, and that's a little bit of clumsy door here. You have to keep the screw in there, or this will want to pop out. The batteries want to pop out. You got spring-loaded batteries, and they just want to pop out from the middle pop. And so you need the door on to prevent that popping out when you're flying, and you need the screw in to keep the door on. There's nothing even to lift up the door with. No little, you know, so the screw's got to come out and then pry that off. One thing you should be aware of with this copter is that when it drops signal, when it goes out of range, it starts to lower, it starts to decrease the power fairly rapidly, and then it drops down or falls. So you could call that a cushion landing because it slowly sort of decreases in power, or you could call it a flyaway, and it really depends on what you were doing with the throttle when it lost the signal. If you have the throttle, if you have full open throttle when you lose signal, and let's say you're going forward too, if you're flying aggressively like that when you lose signal, it might aggressively fly away from you. Something I'd recommend doing is opening it up and bringing up the antenna right up through here. Put a hole in there with a hot pin or something, and bring the antenna up vertically through the canopy, and that'll increase the range and decrease the likelihood that you'll encounter a drop of signal issue when you've got more range. So that's one thing I'd recommend doing on this copter. Another thing I'd recommend for this, because it's so much fun, is to have a bunch of batteries, and you could get slightly larger batteries up to 300 fits in there. Any more, and you might be pushing on these elements here that come from the sensor for the infrared rays, so you don't want to push those and destroy the function of that. But 300s fit in there quite well, with no room left for the leads. So my recommendation for that is to put little pieces of Velcro, self-adhesive Velcro on there, and then just you can just push the battery in and have the leads on the outside joined up, and tie them all down with the fuzzy Velcro strip across there. Alright, we're taking a look inside this copter, and I'm taking off the propellers and placing them appropriately for where they came from, so I don't have to check them and make sure, because propellers are clockwise and counterclockwise turning. So if you get them mixed up, one side of the copter is not going to lift up, or both sides of the copter is not going to lift up. And remember that after you do something with changing propellers, taking them off, putting them on. If they're not on right, the copter won't fly. So that's how you take it off. This prop tool comes supplied with each copter, gets one of those. And then you just take out the screws. These screws are for the prop guards, and when you take them off, if you do, then if you have to reinstall them, there's a little tab down here that has to go into a hole there, and then seat this ring and put the screw back in. If you don't get that tab in first, it's not going to seat properly. I don't recommend taking off the prop guards at this point because it's a new copter. We haven't got parts yet, and this spindle is quite long coming from the gear, and if you get a big hit on that and this gets bent, then you'd have trouble replacing it right now. And so you want Attop to supply parts and stores to carry them. So we take out the screws. There's one there, one there, one there. So there's 3 screws on each arm. That's 12 screws, and then one here and one down here. 14 screws to take out. I'll do that now. Inside, I've taken most of the screws out. I think I've got them all. Inside, sometimes you might have to separate the 2 parts of the shell a little bit. Inside there's clips, kind of. These clip together, so you can take it apart gently like that and run your fingernail along inside the crack. Is a good way to get them to separate out there instead of bending. And there we have the inside of the quad here. So you can see there's the motor lying down, that 6mm by 15mm motor, and here's a little gear pod assembly. There's 2 screws to remove to take that out. And if you want a little close-up of the board here, and so you can see where it would come through. It would poke right through up on top here. Okay, so we're taking off this motor pod now. That's what's inside there. And motor comes out like that. A little 7-tooth pinion on there. Small motors. And here comes the gear assembly. There's the holder. There's the long shaft that holds the propeller. And here's the little spur gear, and you might be able to see that it's got teeth not on the edge but on the top surface here. The teeth are up, facing upwards, so they meet the pinion 90 degrees like that. That's how they turn. Here you have the infrared LED, and then you have the receiver right here. That's the sensor. So even though I lubricated it, it's clean. There's no sand or anything getting in there. So that's good. The end of the gear shaft sits in this little spot in the cup there, and that shaft goes up through the hole in the top of this little holder, and the motor goes in here, and you should wiggle this motor a little bit to make sure that the teeth are going in all the way and that they don't mash up plastic as they're going in. And that's what we have inside these arms. And then you just snap the case back together. And you're ready to put the screws back in. Props just push down. Thanks for listening to the technical aspects about this little copter. And up next comes some flight video where I'm testing the performance of this little guy. And that'll close off the first part of this review of the Attop Air Terminators. And of course, part 2 is the battle, the combat, the contest, the challenge. These two are going to fight it out for air supremacy. There's going to be a battle in the sky between these two guys. Yeah, just shooting myself there. They're super maneuverable. These are well-engineered little guys from Attop. This is a success.